We are on. Welcome to the Board Policy Committee meeting for October 16th. Is the meeting properly posted?
Yes.
It has, thank you. Opportunity for citizens to speak to us if they wish to. I see none unless you're planning on it. No, okay. And we have no bright lights tonight. So that takes us directly into the agenda, which a lot of people are in shock, the fact that the agenda is so short.
Don't worry, I have an update.
But
I have
yeah,
an update. We'll bring
Joe's going to
everybody
fix
back to
that for us
reality.
later,
Yeah.
okay. All right, let's first get the minutes from our September meeting out of the way.
I move to accept the minutes from the policy committee.
Okay, thank you.
I second the motion.
Seconded. Any questions, changes, amendments to the minutes?
I have a question, Jaime.
Sure.
Definition of a program, the guidelines that they're talking about in, Roman numeral 2, letter B. It says Joe Cook introduced revisions as necessary because the policy should include the general definitions of the program, while a guideline should be base process and procedure. So, what's the definition?
We're going to be talking about the homebound instruction shortly, so let's do it, let's do it then.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Anything else on the minutes? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3-0, Lynn.
Thank you.
And there really is the action item for the night. We have no information items, 2 discussion items. The first one, Barbara, to your point, is the one on homebound instruction. We had a first reading at the board meeting, but it's okay to address your question, I think, here. So let's see if we can find that. Now, that would be, that in the administrative guidelines?
We did not include the administrative guidelines.
Oh, in
this
our
packet
handout.
Because the administrative guidelines were included last month to give the committee perspective as to where the process would be laid out for homebound. But this month, because there were no questions on the policy at the board, we discussed it at committee, we're just bringing the policy language forward, which is what the board, or the committee would forward to the board for approval. In this policy, what we're trying to do is capture the intent of the homebound program, which is listed there in those 4 lines that are highlighted or underlined in green. That is the homebound program. Again, getting into the how-to, for instance, when we got into the how-to, we're recommending that the first stop for kids who are going to be out for long-term be eAchieve Academy. It's a comprehensive, robust program, curriculum that kids can progress through. In the policy, you wouldn't list eAchieve, for a variety of reasons, because that may change. That option may change. eAchieve may rename itself. The district may rename eAchieve. You can get into a lot of these maybes that you wouldn't want to have a policy revision for, whereas the administrative guideline, which is how the superintendent wants the policy to be adopted and carried out in the district, where that work would end up. So that's the distinction between the two right now. I'm confident in saying that a lot of what is in red, not all of it, but a lot of what is in red has been migrated to the guideline.
Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
Joe, what if a resident in our district has been attending a private school that does not provide homebound education? What happens to that student?
They're not our student. If you've elected to go to a parochial or a private school, then you've made the choice to go to a homebound, to go to a parochial or a private school. You are not the responsibility of the school district of Waukesha under this policy. This is only for residents, for resident students or open enrolled in students who are attendees of the Waukesha School District.
Well, sometimes people are very creative, and what if a parent of a child that has a need to homesick registers their kids into
And they are our district, they are our student.
and they become ours, and then we'll provide services,
And based off of what was needed,
even if kid never attended school?
right, if they're a resident, if you live within the boundaries of the school district of Waukesha, you are entitled upon enrolling in the district in a free public education through the school district.
So once enrolled, they could do.
Once enrolled, but if you're not enrolled in the district, if your parents have chosen, home-based private education, or if they've attended one of our parochials, or if they're attending another private school, then the parents have made that election. And while that student is enrolled in those schools, they're not getting services from us.
Okay, the purpose in this being on our agenda for today is quite simply, we had the first reading last week at the board meeting. We had no issues that came up at the board meeting that have to be changed in here, and so we were just discussing at this point to see if there's anything members of the committee have that would change this. Otherwise, we'll be taking this for the second reading and approval at the November board meeting. Okay, well, we're all, okay, and again, that will be the whole thing is in the 4 lines on the policy sheet. None of this, rest of this will be involved. Okay? Thank you. Then that's one of our 2 discussion items. The other one deals with the use of district facilities. And at our last board meeting, we heard some comments that have stimulated, I think, the need to at least begin talking about this. I'm going to turn it over to Joel for,
Yeah, so the policy 7510, use of district facilities, governs how we would lease out our facilities. And in this, the third line down, the second paragraph of this talks about the board will permit the use of school facilities when such permission has been requested in writing by a responsible individual, organization, or group of citizens, and has been approved by the CFO, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, or their designee. And so the question that came up and was discussed last week involved facility use by, I believe it was, the soccer club in Waukesha. And my reason for putting this on the agenda, is twofold. One, because it called into question the process. I just wanted you as the policy committee to understand that you as a board, or that the board as a whole has designated the business office to really be in charge of managing these facilities and going through the approval process. But based off of where a lot of this work lies within F&F, which is where this topic had been discussed a week ago Monday, it may be appropriate for this policy discussion to migrate into the F&F committee so that they can discuss what their concerns and their ideas are. And then based off of that discussion, perhaps they'd have some recommendations for this particular policy then that Darren could bring forward and we could entertain as a committee if those changes are necessary.
so are you saying the initiation of any activity might be F&F for now?
I would think that, maybe the F&F committee would want to take a look at it and put some ideas into it. We certainly can come through this group, but a lot of the conversation around that particular issue, the soccer lease, started at the F&F committee
Right.
a week and a half ago. And I wouldn't want to create language that wouldn't address what their concerns were. So I think that we should get some ideas. It'd be one of those things that, like, maybe we've had topics that have had to start in other committees or be deferred to other committees. Policy-based discussions.
To your knowledge, are they going to begin looking at this?
I would ask that, we started it here. We can certainly talk about what's in this policy tonight.
Okay.
Or this afternoon. But I think that the best step would be for me to talk to Darren about bringing the policy forward to F&F for their review to see if it meets that committee's needs. Then the policy could come back to us, and we could take a look at what their ideas are and make sure that it fits within the scope of the policy. And then we could perhaps bring it to the full board for discussion if it's appropriate.
And I know you and I talked about this in planning for this meeting, and one of the questions that came up was down near the bottom of that first page is the superintendent shall develop administrative guidelines. Are we at the point where we have those now or not? I don't think we have anything.
We don't have anything formally out there. We've had a common practice that has been used for years in our district with facilities. We are, obviously, because this is a topic now of conversation, we don't want to just put something together. We want to make sure that the guideline matches what the policy expectation is.
Okay,
And because essentially the policy has come into question by members of the F&F committee and by members of the community, we should look at the policy before we go about addressing guidelines again.
And then that would be a follow-up.
That would be a follow-up. So we would have, we'd have some policy work to do first, and once those policy decisions are made, then we would come back and I'd work with Todd on what those guidelines would be, Todd and Darren in this area, and
Okay.
make sure that we have the guideline to match the policy.
Barbara?
How is the district dealing with or addressing the concern that was shared with us by that soccer group?
We are looking into the concern as a district. Because we're talking about the policy, I don't want to get into that, but we are looking into that particular piece. I would say from more broadly, we get concerns from people all the time that we have to look into. That's part of our jobs at the district office, is to take a look at what people are concerned about and see what's there, what's not there.
Since I'm on the finance and facility, I can say that yes, indeed, we are looking into it. And I just received communication today about the next step of the process. So it's finance and facilities is definitely addressing the topic, the issue.
Barbara?
Please, I'm looking at, under letter B, the second paragraph where it talks about all those different outdoor.
I do too. I'm glad you brought it up. I got a big question mark I put on
Oh,
there.
okay,
Where-
well,
Go ahead, no, you go.
well, I'm just wondering, how does this relate to, district facilities? Because we really don't, as far as I know, we don't involve schools in much of this stuff.
I was thinking Neola
Why is
language.
it in there?
Which area is that?
Start outdoor activity.
Includes hunting, fishing, traveling.
Sure, I mean, while we do not have hunting and fishing, there are school districts that have, trap shooting teams. Fishing, we do have a fishing club over at North and
Oh.
at West. Trapping, we do not have trapping, we do not have camping. Picnicking is a common practice in the spring and in the fall of the year where groups will get together. Exploring caves, while that is not something that is local to Waukesha, it is something that could be captured. I mean, if you go to parts of western Wisconsin, if a school group were to go to part of western Wisconsin, there are, so, I mean, it just depends. When you talk about use of facilities, are the Boy Scouts who are using whatever school also going on this particular type of trip? We want to make sure that we're all encompassing if we can be.
Okay.
Nature study, we have the nature center, we have the environmental science facilities, so what they're trying to do is cast as broad of a net in outdoor activity as they possibly can, so that we're protected in the event that the unique circumstance comes up.
In the event that any of these would start up someplace within the district.
If somebody wanted to use our facilities for something, we want to make sure that we're covered.
Now, for the most part, these wouldn't be on our facilities, except for,
Correct.
except for the nature center.
The nature center, maybe at the environmental science area.
Yeah.
At the science center, we might run into that particular, the idea of fishing, the proximity to the river there. So we would just, again, we want to take outdoor activity, define it as broadly as we can, so that when we get a request that is unique, we don't have to come back to the board to ask for permission, yes or no,
Okay.
the board has already covered it.
One other piece that I'd like to mention, under the second B at the bottom of the page, they have a new online processing system, and that's what has brought some of the availability of facilities like to light. It had been something that Glenn Norder was able to just take care of, made a manual process, and now since it's a more centralized online processing through Darren's office, it's a little bit more obvious about some of the lack of facilities that are available.
You're talking about letter B?
Yeah, they mentioned that, requests should be specifically in writing and granted by a procedure by which permission to use facilities is granted, and now it is a new online facility, the processing, for facility use.
Are you saying that the request is online and people will make requests from online?
They would make, they'd submit like a request.
The
So it's-
virtual submission.
Yeah, so it's going to be easy to monitor who's using what, quantitatively, et cetera, because of that type of controlled, centralized access.
Do you know, does it also have statistical data reports so you can see where we are being used and where we maybe aren't really being used as much as we think?
Well, I believe it's a brand-new system that just went into place, like, for this school year. So I don't know that they have, created any database, but I think because it is
Okay, it's this year.
going to be,
Okay.
it's a brand-new system.
That's
So,
Give an example of how it's gonna work.
the online processing,
No, the request.
There is an online, so if you are interested in requesting our facilities, you go to our district webpage, you go to the business office, there is a facilities use request area. And once you begin to navigate that, you fill that out.
Oh.
I do not have, I've never made the request.
Right.
I'm familiar with where it's on the webpage. But I know that FNF has seen this equipment present, or this software platform presented. I don't know when that happened, but I do believe that Jess was in FNF, I think, to show what this facility use software looked like. Please don't, I'm not 100% certain of
Okay.
that, but I'm pretty confident that she has shown the committee what this looks like.
What else, before you go talking to Darren about this, what else do you would like us to talk about?
No, I guess, this is not an old policy for us. We adopted this in February of 17 or 16, I forget the date, 17. So I don't know what is, I was not at the FNF committee, so I don't know what the specific concerns are around our process. But knowing that the policy designates the CFO the authority to approve facility use, and now facility use is coming into question, I think it's worth then bringing up, and
Yes.
particularly for the FNF committee, which kind of has the oversight, because I don't think the FNF committee would want to approve every facility use request. You guys would probably be meeting once a week in order to handle all of those requests. However, I think that there needs to be a discussion at the FNF committee around what is the expectation then? Because if administrative discretion in any way, shape, or form is questioned, we want to make sure that there's clarity between what the board expects and what administration does. What's that?
What about who, that request?
As long as they fall, we cannot discriminate within the who. So as long
It
as,
doesn't have to be school related.
this is for the people who want to use our facilities. So it could be, if a church group wants to use it, if a civic group wants to use it, if a club wants to use it, if a random group of citizens want to get together and play basketball and they want to pay our fees and do that. So we cannot discriminate in facilities use.
Right.
It's just a matter of where does that approval lie? And I know that there's some discussion that had begun at the committee level. Diane confirmed that, and I know you guys are doing some work on it. I think it's worth entertaining then the policy that governs this area.
Well, I don't think this is a new thing. I think we've had this for a long time. It may have been adjusted over the years, but we've had this.
Oh, we've had something, but this was a policy that was most recently adopted after it went through our whole Neola reviews, right? And, yeah, it's something we've always had a plan or policy in place, but this, and now, I guess what Joe is saying and what I would agree with, given that we've had some attention from the outside coming in, it's time to go back and look at whether there's more, particularly, I think I had this conversation, if it wasn't with you, it was with Todd. It was, eventually we have to have something more specific about how does it fall, somebody that's asked for it, how does it fall into place in terms of whether you get it or somebody else gets it? Sometimes there has to be a decision made as to, for this facility, we got two contenders for this facility. We have to have a way of dealing with it.
Right.
And I don't know that that's addressed anyplace in here today.
It isn't, and some of that though may lie in an administrative guideline.
Oh, sure.
When you're writing the rule as to how it comes out, but again, I know that FNF is talking about it, I know that the topic is grounded in a policy. I think then that FNF should, I'll pass this along to Darren.
And I think that's all I would suggest for now, is that you begin the conversation with Darren and keeping us informed as to whether there's policy impact on it or not.
Sure, we can do that.
From my take, being on the other committee as well, I think we just wanted to see the policy and then know that most of this is administrative procedural and, which we don't have control over. Do we have to change the policy if we want to change something there? And I think we have to review it before we make any of those decisions. Yeah, the policy was called into question because of the way the
Was.
administrative details are working out right now, you know. But I think the policy
Again,
looks
A lot of
fine.
the decision points that happened on that happened years before this policy was even put in place, so.
Exactly.
So anyway, we'll pass that along.
Okay, that really concludes these discussion items. Other business, are they ready for that?
Yeah,
Joe's going to kind of tell us,
I know you guys
we've
have
had
been-
our recess now, what happens next?
Yeah, I know you've been feeling neglected as a group. We've been emailing with Richard Zimmerman from Neola, and we have 57 policy reviews, 2 new policies, and 25 administrative guidelines that will be coming up in the next few months. And so Lynn and I are working with a date on Richard to do a preliminary review before we come to committee. Again, I would remind you that a lot of what is going to come to you, and we will try to package it like this, is going to be a technical legal change, like where the Department of Health and Human Services may make a word change. The Department of Education may retitle a group of kids. The department, the department that oversees our food service may make tweaks to the policy. We'll bring you all of the big, heavy legal ones first. Given our experience with a lot of the types of requests that come from those, like it is changing. One example was ELL to EL. Another policy in the food area had just minor minor legal changes that should not require a 2 reading of the board. And so what we may do is come to you next month with all of those policies, let you review it, and then bring them forward at a board meeting under one review, just so we can make that technical change and go from there.
All 57.
Not all 57. I wish, I really do wish it would be all 57 policies, but we can talk a little bit about the process. We're a year and a half, nearly 2 years into the review process now on policies. And a lot of what is being brought forward to the board is so minor and so technical in nature, it doesn't substantially change how that policy is being implemented. Therefore, I don't think it requires a 2 reading. But again, it's going to be the decision of the board if they want to do that. We will get some policies, and I haven't seen them all yet, but we will get some policies that really need to be treated with a lot of detail, because they are going to impact how we operate as a district. Those would be the ones then that we would want to spend some time on as a committee. And
Sure.
so,
Well, we've been pretty positive about grouping things together that don't require significant discussion, and controversy is probably improbable, if nothing else. And I think we just have to stay on that path. Nobody's disagreed with it in the few that we had, like ELL and versus EL and stuff like that.
and if there's a way, I know, our board meetings, there's a lot of important business discussed at board meetings. If there's a way to expedite a section of that, we have a legal obligation to make those policy changes.
Well, yeah.
But if there's a way to expedite that for the board, it would be nice to.
Even using the waiver process if necessary, because it's legal.
Right, it is.
For us to do, it's in our policy to do
Have a
that.
policy that says you can waive the second reading based off of the types of changes that we would be bringing forward through committee. You guys would have a chance to review it. There would be no substantial change to the policy, therefore. And I haven't seen them, I haven't reviewed them.
Okay, well,
We may only have 7 policies of the 57 that would fall into that bucket.
Yeah.
And we'd have 50 that require a lot of work.
Yeah,
But based off of our experience, we're probably gonna have more that fall into that bucket than anything else.
Yeah.
And these things come from DPI.
They may come from DPI, they may come from the Department of Education in Washington, they may come from the Department of Revenue in Washington, they may come from the Equal Employment Opportunity Board, they may come from, you name it, they may come from there. They just funnel into us through this policy, and we have to make the adjustments.
It's coming through the door right now.
Oh, there we are. So,
Okay, so that's coming. And
It's coming.
you have any feel for when Richard might get that back to you?
we're working on the date, and we would do the preliminary review. I would anticipate that they would not be on our agenda any sooner than December.
Okay,
Just based off of how much is there and what we would want to review. Even if we met with them this month, by the time Lynn and I met with Darren, Chris, Jody, Todd, Steve, you name the group that we needed to meet with to try to put a put a final twist on what we're presenting to you, it would take us a good month, month and a half.
It'll be into the later in the winter. The only thing is to watch for anything that might be time sensitive in there.
Right, and Richard is very good at telling us what is time sensitive, what we need to have in place ASAP.
Okay. Barbara?
So whatever ends up here has been discussed with other administrators and assistants.
Yeah, so just to give you, I mean, so if you look at it from where it all starts, whatever governing body creates the rule, goes through the Neola attorneys, comes to me and Lynn through a meeting with Richard Zimmern where he explains it. We kind of get an idea as to what the policy is saying, what the change needs to be made. Then I meet individually with the respective assistant superintendent or others, if it's appropriate, to review the policy. After that is done, then I come to you with a policy recommendation, and then you review it, and then the full board gets a stab at it, and then you get a chance to look at it one more time, and then we go for approval. It is thoroughly vetted.
It's thoroughly
by the time
vetted,
it gets to you.
And a good
So
program.
what you're saying, we may not have a November meeting? Like,
Might not have a November meeting.
like no need?
We might not have a need for one.
Oh, that would be the first time.
It would be the first, it would be the
I was
first,
just inferring from what he was saying.
and since we started this Neola work, yeah, it would be the first month where we,
Well, you know, we'll wait.
so I might still give you a break.
Well, you promised us one in September, you're 2 minutes late. Okay.
I do. I try to keep to those deadlines. But November's a nice time to have a break, right?
Yeah, wonderful weather,
Beautiful weather.
especially late November like you're shooting for.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It's nice and cold.
Here's a guy that wants to go out with his
perfect
beard, with
opportunity.
it warm his face, and so he can go out and hunt.
Sit out in my tree stand. There's nothing like being in nature.
Oh, boy. Okay, other points as needed from committee members, something that needs to be addressed that you're aware of and we haven't thought of yet.
Actually, I was going to talk about use of district facilities, and he was way ahead of me, so.
Okay. Well, we do know that that's got to be addressed one way or another, and we will be working on it. I visited with Joanne and Todd on that last week, so. Okay, if that's it for today, then pending further possibilities, we may or may not have a policy meeting on November 20th. If we have one, it'll be on November 20th, right? A better way to say it?
Well, I can see you in December.
Can't do it twice. Okay, thank you. We are adjourned with that. That might be a record.